Good morning. You're watching Fox 46. Good day, Charlotte.
New this morning, it is another challenge sweeping across TikTok, encouraging kids to take dangerous amounts of Benadryl to induce hallucinations. It's called the Benadryl Challenge, but it's very dangerous. Here to explain, Dr. Anna Maria Temple. And Dr. Temple, you and I were just talking in the commercial break about this. Before we get to sort of the practical implications of this and what to do if your kid, if this comes across their radar, can you explain also just in general what Benadryl or medications like it, the effects that they have on the body, why we use them for good, and why they can really be harmful when they're used like this?
Well, sure. Benadryl in itself is supposed to be in the quantities that are actually prescribed that you're supposed to be taking. They help with itching, with seasonal allergies, with poison ivy, scratching, and some people helps with anxiety and sleep. However, when taken in large quantities, it can cause seizures, hallucinations. It can cause cardiac arrhythmias, which means your irregular heartbeats, and it can cause your heart to stop, which leads to death.
And is Benadryl similar to alcohol or really any substance that you would put in your body, I guess, in terms of depending on your size, depending on your gender, it can affect you differently? Like, is there any kind of guidelines to tell kids in terms of what's a lot and when it could be dangerous for you?
Well, it's the only thing we can tell them is whatever it says on the bottle, don't take more than what is prescribed on the bottle. Because each human, just like you said, each human is individual, and it does depend on your weight and height and what you've had to eat and your really overall body composition. So there's no really safe way to overdose.
Okay, so when we get to things like this challenge, you had the cinnamon challenge, you had the Tide Pod challenge, now this is one of them. What is it that kids are seeing people do online, and what does happen, what can happen, I should say, in terms of its dangers for kids who are considering taking part in this?
Right. Well, it's the promise of hallucinations. And we know that teenagers are about experimentation. This is not anything new. And so they get wind of something. Oh, it makes me see things or do things or feel weird or feel different. The children, a lot of teens are so lonely. They're trapped in their rooms behind screens all day. They're craving social interaction. And this is one more way to get noticed. I did the Benadryl challenge, or I'm going to do it, with promises to get them fame on social media because they're so lonely and isolated.
So what can parents do about this, aside from just having open and honest conversations, which is often the best first place to start? What are some practical things parents can do to protect their kids?
Well, and number one, talk to your kids, right? But we don't want to just talk to them. A lot of parents will say, well, I'm not going to let you have TikTok or Instagram or whatever. It doesn't matter. You need to talk to them because kids talk about these things on their Xbox, on text or chatting, calls. No one calls each other anymore, but you know what I'm saying. So they're getting the message across, and we've got to get our children out there socializing with other kids. The more lonely they are, the more isolated, the more they're going to look to see what other things they can do to be noticed. Another thing, talk to them about over-the-counter medications. Just because it's over-the-counter does not mean it's safe. In previous years, cough syrups were the rage for hallucinations as well because of an ingredient called dextromethorphan. And that promised the same thing. And kids were stealing these medications from the pharmacies. You'll notice they're locked now because in high doses, it would cause hallucinations. However, it also had issues with heart stopping and causing kids to die. Not to mention Sudafed, which is used to make crystal meth. And as you know, that's way behind the counter because they've had to control all of these over-the-counter medications because in large quantities, none of these things are safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing, which I don't think parents think about, we got to get rid of extra medications. You had your teeth pulled, you had a surgery, you had this, you leave all the leftovers in your medicine cabinet. Well, you know what teenagers do? They snoop around and they experiment with stuff. I can't tell you how many stories I have in clinic about, well, just this one time when my mom, whatever. So we got to be really careful.
Okay, before you go, we're out of time, but I think it's an important part of what you just said there, the safe way to get rid of them. What should parents do?
Well, you can actually call your pharmacies, and the pharmacies have ways to dispense the medication. You don't want to throw them down your sink because now it's going to go in our water supply.
Right.
The same thing with a toilet. So, and you don't want to leave them in the landfill because from the landfill they seep into our water. So take them to your local pharmacies. The pharmacies know how to dispense these.
Dr. Anna Maria Templa, thank you so much. We are out of time. Brigida, over to you for what's coming up next.